Welcome to the Revenue Builders Podcast with John McMahon and John Kaplan. This podcast is brought to you by the team at Force Management. Today, we're revisiting a segment from our episode on selling enterprise software and connecting technical capabilities to business outcomes with John Donnelly. John is a seasoned enterprise sales leader with deep experience scaling complex sales motions. In this clip, he breaks down why so many sellers default to features, where discovery goes wrong, and how the best reps connect technical differentiation to real business impact to win complex deals. This topic is highly relevant right now, particularly for those companies that are selling AI solutions. Let's dive in.
So important when you're in sales, and a lot of people, I think, they get nervous on sales calls and they're thinking more about what they're going to say than truly asking a question and really listening and really feeling and really being part of the customer conversation. Have you seen that a lot in your career?
Absolutely. And I think it's fundamental to strong champion building, in that the person you're speaking with, if they don't feel like you're respecting what they're saying, or there's an action around it, then you're probably not going to get very far.
Yeah.
So just to wrap up.
The hardest part of selling enterprise software today versus, like, I know you were at Wang and you had a number of other companies, MobileIron, Kana, but what's the hardest part of selling enterprise software today?
I just think that most of the industry still focuses, and we give it a lot of talk about selling on value and building strong justifications, but most of the companies out there still selling features. So there's a lot of feature differentiation discussions that go on. Or we do this, we do dedupe, they don't. And honestly, the bigger impact is what you can show the customer over their long-term business. So not only saving money, but growing the business, but also impacting all the other organizations. So whether or not you're selling data storage or you're selling a CRM solution, and that transformation is going to exponentially happen with the introduction of all these new AI tools. So if you just
we get into that a little bit later, but what you just said is so right. Like, so many companies are still selling features. And I remember early in my career, I was selling features. I was guilty.
Sure.
But I remember sitting there talking about features and looking at the customer across the table, or customers across the table, and thinking, they have written on their forehead, like, why do I care? Like, I'm getting blank stares. I'm not getting any head nods. There's a problem here. But that's what the way I was originally taught was, sell feature, advantage, benefit, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Well, why do I care? You have to answer that question. And they're not caring about your features if they don't understand how it affects them.
That's right. And going back to, one of the highlights, and I'll get into parametric, but really understanding that concept of champion building, and the belief that, a lot of folks, sure, they're looking to get promoted, they're looking to make more money, but honestly, they're just looking to do their job. And they're looking to do their job so nobody gives them a hard time, that they get it across the line, and that they, are successful.
If we go back, I'm going to pull you back into the sales process. So, listening is super important. Agree 1,000% on that. And then selling value is important instead of features. So then really why is it that so many people screw up the discovery phase of the sales process, where that's where you can really listen and unearth the issues and pains that the customers have? Why do they try to go so fast through that process?
Because they're looking for an outcome that checks the boxes, and sales is not a box checking process. So, and I've sold products that were super feature rich, and the features differentiated yourself, but what was the value to? When I was at MobileIron, one of the key features that sold in the company went from 0 to 100 million in 18 months was when employees were using their phones for work purposes, and they would leave, they would wipe the whole phone, and hence all my pictures would get wiped. That little aspect to it caused so much pain and agony in companies that a lot of them were going to go back to, eliminate the bring your own device world and go back to corporate issued phones, just because they didn't want to get into that. And so translating that value over and leading the buyer down that journey versus them kind of dictating how that works is uber important.
Yeah, Johnny, I think that on this topic of value and features, I've always find it was never either or. It was an intersection, because companies that do a great job of providing the knowledge of what the features, advantages, and benefits are, that has an absolute place. You have to have the technical expertise and the differentiation, but you can't have that without the connection, what I call like the intersection to business outcomes. And I think the greatest companies in the world, they figured that out. Like they taught people to have their feet in two places. One foot is in the technical expertise, the technical capabilities, and the other foot was in the business outcomes. And I've always found, like in enterprise sales, you can't do one without the other, especially today, because most of those companies today are entering through a technical aspect, and maybe they were a product-led growth or what have you. And so they have a technical conversation, they have a technical presentation, which is an absolute must. And then they have to intersect into a business outcome in order to get into the enterprise.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you enjoy the content, please subscribe, rate, and review the show to help us reach more people. This show is brought to you by Force Management, where we help companies improve sales performance, executing the growth strategy at the point of sale. Check out forcemanagement.com for more information.